Israeli airstrikes and raids across the occupied West Bank have killed at least 9 Palestinians. Israel says the military operation is its largest there since the second intifada more than 2 decades ago. Airstrikes in the cities of Tubas and Jenin also injured at least 10 people. Palestinian fighters have been confronting the Israeli army using improvised explosives. Israeli military bulldozers and armoured vehicles have also stormed towns north of Ramallah. Well, since October, nearly half of Palestinians killed in the occupied West Bank were in Jenin in the north and Tulkarem to the west. That's at least 310 of the 650 people killed. Tubas is also increasingly being targeted in last month, and Tuesday night's airstrikes killed 4 people there. Israel's foreign minister has commented on the large-scale military operations across the occupied West Bank, saying that the Israeli army is working hard in the Jenin and Tulkarem camps to dismantle the Iranian infrastructure built there. Iran is working on establishing an eastern front against Israel in the West Bank, similar to the model of Gaza and Lebanon. We have to address the threat to the West Bank, as we're doing in Gaza, including the temporary evacuation of the population. And this is a war in every sense of the word, and we must win it. Nida Ibrahim is joining us now from Nablus in the occupied West Bank. Hi, Nida. I mean, the Israelis have gone in hard into the occupied West Bank overnight, haven't they?
Yes, indeed. It all started around midnight local time when the Israeli forces raided 3 locations in the occupied West Bank, all in the north of it. At the same time, we are talking about raids that took place in Jenin, Tulkarem, and Tubas. These are the areas where we've been seeing some Palestinian fighters working from. And we've been talking to locals who have already been seeing intensive raids in the past few weeks, but they can confirm to us that they've heard and seen 3 airstrikes in the 3 different locations. We're talking about 9 people who have been killed as a death toll for now, dozens injured as a result of this operation that is including thousands of military soldiers and personnel, as we've heard from the Israeli sources. Let's not forget that the West Bank has already been undergoing through a lot of violence by the Israeli forces. But not only that, we are also talking about violence by the Israeli settlers who have been growing in numbers when it comes to their presence here in the occupied West Bank. But also they have been getting more access to arms, threatening and intimidating Palestinians. And just yesterday we were in Bethlehem reporting about a Palestinian who has been shot dead after Israeli settlers attacked their village. So we are talking about a situation in the occupied West Bank that is already very volatile. And now with the news of these 3 raids and the announcement from the Israeli military that this is the largest military operation that is being carried out in the occupied West Bank since 2002, we are already talking about a deteriorating situation where we stand right now.
Nida, timing is everything. What do you make of what's going on and why it's happening now?
You know, yes, we talk about Gaza, and yes, the massive toll when we talk about Palestinians killed, Palestinians evacuated, Palestinians being displaced is in Gaza. But in the occupied West Bank, we cannot ignore that there has been some sort of what's known here as a silent war. Yes, it's not making the news every day in international media and whatnot, but this does not negate the fact that Palestinians are living under very heavy control, the restriction of the Israeli military forces, the Israeli occupation and its settlers. Already we've been hearing the rhetoric from the Israeli military officials intensify and increase. There's a lot of incitement against the Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. We've heard military officials comparing Jenin to the north of the occupied West Bank as a mini Gaza. We've been hearing the defense minister green-lighting more and more use of Israeli aerial strikes against Palestinian targets. Already since the beginning of the war, we're talking about around 50 airstrikes against Palestinians, and sometimes we are in places where it happens in residential areas, intimidating and creating a lot of fear and anxiety amongst Palestinians. So already we've been hearing in the Israeli media a lot of incitement against the occupied West Bank, and Palestinians feel that Israel wants to use the time where all eyes are on Gaza to expedite its operations and its occupation and cement really the occupation here in the occupied West Bank, whether by these Israeli raids, by the intimidation, by the checkpoints, by the illegal Israeli settlements, by the illegal Israeli settlement outposts. You know, today we were talking about something that's happening for the first time in Jenin. The Palestinian hospital and the medical teams have received evacuation orders. They've been notified to leave the hospital. This is a hospital that has 150 patients, around 200 employees, medicals and staff. So we are talking about, definitely a deterioration and an escalation here in the occupied West Bank. So far, the hospital has not evacuated, but we'll be here updating you with all the latest.
Indeed. Nida Ibrahim there for us in Nablus. Thanks, Nida. Joining us here in the studio is Hassan Barari, Professor of International Affairs at Qatar University. Good to have you with us again. Let's just analyse what's going on in the occupied West Bank. How serious do you think this particular situation is in comparison to the analogy that it's very similar to the intifadas of the past?
Well, I wouldn't say that this is similar to the intifada, but I would like to say that this fits into a broader context, which is the Israeli design for the West Bank. They want to create more facts on the ground. They want to push the Palestinian to the edge, and at the end of the day, they want the whole land. I mean, ultra nationalists in the government are saying this publicly that this is Eretz Israel, that's the land of Israel, quote unquote. They don't even refer it in its proper name. They use the word Judea and Samaria in order to legitimize all of these aggressive moves against the Palestinians.
We just heard from Nida there, evacuation orders on a hospital. There is also this connection that the Israelis are trying to make, as we heard from the minister, that Iran is involved, that there is an influence of Iran in the occupied West Bank. They're trying to make this narrative that will sit well, I think, and I wonder what you think, with the West, the EU, the US, and that will give them legitimacy to go in a similar vein to Gaza. Exactly,
but even more important is to address the Israeli public, who are really not fed up with Netanyahu's leadership. He has been using this card for a long time, since 2009. He was talking about the Iranian threat. So using the Iranian threat without actually confronting Iran, but at the same time he's like implementing his vision of a greater Israel.
And we have to say, with no evidence on the ground.
No, there's no, absolutely. I mean, I would have bought into his argument if he is talking about proxies. But the Palestinians have been under occupation since 1967. They have the right to self-determination. They have the right to defend themselves. So they have been standing up to this occupation, whether Iran exists on the map or not. So linking that to the Iranian scheme in the region, I think this is kind of deception. But at the same time, he wants to get the West on board with his expansionist policies in the West Bank.
What do you make of the lack of reaction from the Palestinian Authority? Because we talk about intifada as a historical moment in time, and the Israelis are talking about armed groups at the moment in the occupied West Bank. Are we talking about a generational shift and a divide within the Palestinian diaspora in the occupied West Bank about what is an intifada, who would fight the Israelis, and who, the wedge that is between the older generation and the younger generation? There's a lot of dynamics here, isn't there, about what's going on?
Well, there's something in the making. I mean, I can't really put my finger on it, but this is definitely the new generation fed up with the old leadership, that's Mahmoud Abbas and his cronies. And those people, I pin hope on negotiation. They've been reliant on Israel for survival. Israel provide them with everything they need. They provide them with kind of prerogatives, with money, because they collect the tax on their behalf and send it back to them. And in this way, the PA can control the Palestinian society. So they're dependent on the Israelis. But this generation, they can't find jobs. They see that their land is being grabbed by the Israelis on a daily basis. They see the expansion of settlement, and they see their leadership doing nothing, especially when the Israelis have been domiciled in Gaza and doing this genocidal war in Gaza. And when Mahmoud Abbas is just, talking as if he's a political commentator. He is not really a leader with tools that can make a difference in the relationship with Israel. So more generations and more people on the Palestinian side are seeing this leadership as something from the old time, that does not really fit the new requirement for the Palestinian.
Be interesting to see what does happen. For the moment, Hassan Barari, thanks so much for joining us from Qatar University.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.